All right. Okay.
Astronauts to the moon.
Houston, we have a problem.
Astronauts to the moon.
All right. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Heliopsychosis podcast. Welcome to the show, guys. If you're watching us from YouTube, do like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you're watching us from Flat Earth Research Network or Heliopsychosis group on Facebook, do comment and tag your friends. And finally, if you're watching us from realtruthseekers.com.net, welcome to everyone there too. And yes, realtruthseekers.com.net is one of our main sponsors for this show and all our productions. So
Right.
make sure you guys check out realtruthseekers.com. They have amazing features coming every time. So one of their latest features is going to be that we could directly stream on RTS, because right now the people watching it on RTS are watching through YouTube. So soon that will be also a good way, a good opportunity for all of us and all the content creators. So nothing could be shadow banned or censored like how we know YouTube is known for. So yeah, what an awesome show we have today. Let's introduce our guest. My first co-host, like always, Rob Taylor. He don't really need an introduction to. So Rob, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Vikka, thanks for the introduction. Great show we have laid on. Thanks for all your work in coordinating everything. Thanks to you for the tireless effort and coordination, and also thanks to RTS and everybody else who gives us digital support. Thanks to Gene and Kevin for their cooperation and contribution. Today is Physics 101. I am a physicist myself, 4 different ways, both as an engineer, 3 different ways, and as a pilot and a rotary wing pilot, aerodynamic physics. It's time to go to town, and we're going to systematically dismantle the fraud that is gravity. Back to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, it's a collaboration from everybody, and it's really important that we have everyone's input on all what we discuss here, so that people can have a wide variety of options. So it's great. Yeah, welcome, Rob. It's awesome. And our next co-host, everybody know him too, Jeannie. Jeannie, how are you?
Hey Vika, how's everybody doing? Thanks for having me, brother. It's great to be back. You guys had an awesome show last week. If anybody missed it, I would suggest go check it out about the electric sun. Great topic. You guys covered it really well. And sorry I missed it. But it's great to be here. And thanks, Vikka. This topic is about gravity, and it's a crazy subject. But starts in the beginning with the Big Bang. That's what started it all. Let's get into this. And I'd like to say to everybody out there who's been hanging out on my Facebook and on the podcast and in the chat that we all of us, all the guys on this cast and all of you truthers out there, we all had a hand in, and I'll go out on a limb and say we took out the James Webb Telescope because that was no accident. That there is no James Webb Telescope, and sand didn't hit it. We did. We bombarded them so bad that they had to destroy that machine in make-believe world. So bravo to all you guys. That's what I really think happened. And this is a lot of fun. I can't wait for the night. Thanks again, Vikka.
Oh, thanks, Jeannie. Well, it's always a pleasure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so cheap CGI that they are giving for the amount they're taking. Yeah, even the way globetrotters and many who believe in at least the moon landing hoax, even they can't believe it. They're all taking it as a joke. Most of them, if you go to most of their groups and all these science lovers and all these sci-fi lovers and NASA lovers, they themselves are making fun of it. So so that's great.
It really was. Yeah, and I noticed something else real quick. That we got all the reels about all of these truth subjects we're talking about. There's multitude of them. We got reels coming out the nose. There's so many of them. The reels, the TikToks, and I don't notice the other side with all these reels and TikToks. Does anybody else? Am I missing something? We're taking over.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Good point there. Good point there, Gene. And
thanks.
First off, how many? I don't know. There's been no critique whatsoever of the Flatten the Curve documentary. And that has extended to everything else. And for example, look at Gene. What you're talking about is the grassroots movement. There are grassroots movements all over the flat Earth. Their garbage, paid memes and paid shills. For the most part, they're diminishing rapidly, and I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, they don't have anywhere to go. They get
Oh yeah.
Good.
The truth is out. In other words, the truth is out, and the truth is out and running.
Oh yeah, our next guest. Let's introduce our next guest so he can also jump in too with the conversation. Everybody know him too, also from Flatten the Curve. Kevin, how are you, Kevin?
So blessed. I'll be dumb to complain.
Awesome, bro. Welcome. And our final guest, Keith. Keith, how are you?
Hey, Vikka, good. I'm just honored to be associated with all you guys. And Gene, I completely concur with you that it was all the flat earthers completely debunking all those CGI images.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, brother.
This is going to be fun today for sure.
Oh yeah. So let's see. Maybe Eddie's gonna join us in some time too.
And Vikka, I wanted to mention that. I want to say thanks and greetings and welcome to anybody else on the team that may not be in talking with us at this moment, because everybody else on the team, they'd love to be here. We've got quite a team that's not on the they're not talking right now, but they're still out there. We want to welcome everybody else out there. We got Mark, we got Eddie, we got Gregory Garrett, we got a bunch of guys out there, Joshua Silva, and several other guys.
Brett Freeman too, and and there are many people.
Mark.
We are always available to rotate and get more people also. So Francis too, and and many more new people also joining our teams.
Shout out to Gregory Garrett. Actually invited him to be on the podcast earlier. This guy is so poetic. I love it.
And he's written books about this topic, the McToon Crown Prince of Gravity. That dude, he's got a volume in his head at any given moment, every second. Volumes plural. And I say, we got the ship guys. Should I say the squids? The ship guys? I'm joking.
Oh yeah, we have a couple of new pilots too, you know. So lately,
yeah, Joe Black. Where's Joe Black? He should be on here. He's in the Philippines.
What about Keith though? Keith has given so much information recently. Let's give him some love. Keith, thank you so much.
Honored to be with you guys, really.
Same here, brother.
And then also, definitely, Keith, and also we had another pilot from south of Spain that we came to know recently, that has his own. He's from Ryanair, and he's from south of Spain, maybe 150 miles from here where I am, and they have even there. He has his own basketball team called Basket Flat Earth.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And he's a pilot.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So there are people waking up, man. It's there are many people. Yeah, we can't share the name, but the people are really waking up, and this is same like Flatten the Curve. It's gonna be much more people, you know, and so it's great, man. It's at least that's what the people were asking, you know, where are the real people, where are the professionals? So there you have it, and there are coming loads of them by day. So all right, guys, let's jump into our most amazing topic, you know. So we all know, you know, from the first time in the kindergarten when you enter, we see a ball, and that's the first thing they put on us, that this is your world, this is where you live. And I think even the kids of that age would have really, you know, if a little bit grown, a little bit of sense, would say, how is this gonna happen, you know? And so they makes the first impression at the child that it stays in your mind forever, you know. So, and calling it that a spinning ball with all the oceans and seas sticking to it by a magic force called gravity. So it's a really hard one, you know, to start your life with, your education life with, you know.
No, for sure. It's observation over indoctrination. It's something we have to observe for ourselves. Observable, repeatable, testable experiments without hypotheses and conclusions, instead of just falling victim of popular public opinion, right?
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk science. Observation is more powerful than any other type of science. There's theoretical science, there's imaginary science, there's fairy tale science, which we have at the universities. It's called Luciferian University science. It's imaginary, theoretical. Observation is pure. Observation is pure science, right? Observation is pure science.
When did theoretical science take over real science, though? Right?
About the year 1500, when King Henry forced the universities at beheading, under threat of beheading, forced them to teach the globe in this garbage called gravity.
Yeah.
Yep,
this is going to be.
That's when it happened.
That's it. That's exactly. And we're all
starting
under that rule.
Starting with how is his name? Newton.
Copernicus.
With Newton, with his book Principias, you know, he himself, you know, he don't believe what he was really writing about, you know, because he was more of a theological. He was more of a theological and occultism writer than a scientist. Okay,
yes, sir.
That's what.
Yes, sir. He was also part of the Royal Society, which was a Freemason-involved alchemist POS. This guy was taking pieces of coins and dragging people around the streets on the back of his cabin. And this guy is somebody that we have to look up to. This actually happened whenever the apple dropped. It was 1666.
Right.
How ironic of numbers.
Isn't that interesting, right? Now, let's talk. I want to return to that apple, Kevin. It dropped in the thin air. What if we drop that apple in a bucket of water? It's not going to
Or
fall
let's
anymore, is
drop
it?
that, let's go ahead and drop that apple into a liquid mercury and see what happens.
Right. But we never hear about that in the quote schools, do we?
Unless you observe it yourself. You have to observe it yourself.
Unless we conduct
hypotheses and conclusions.
Imagine that. Unless we conduct our own science experiment and we learn the truth, because the schools don't teach truth. They force their garbage. Now, Vikka, who was it that was talking about Newton and was considered a cult religious type writer? Well,
Yes.
that description you gave of him, that matches Einstein as well. They were cult religious writers.
Oh yeah.
Cult religious writers. That's all they were.
Einstein
He also sits in the same group as Nicholas Copernicus. These guys are all
Exactly.
Freemason BSs, POSs, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and Einstein, the fake genius, needs a whole show for himself. We're gonna have it in the near future only about the fake genius Einstein. He was so absurd, and he didn't really do any shit. So, getting back to Newton was. He, as I said, he was just more theological. He was more occultism than he was involving he was involving divine intervention, trying to explain gravity, because he was his version of gravity. The first version was because the apple fell, because the apple has a mass and the earth has its own mass, so two masses are just attracting to each other, and he's calling it gravity. But he wasn't sure himself.
The apple must have been really big for it to hit his head that hard.
Newton even said this himself, and everybody knows it. Newton even says himself, the phenomenon of one mass attracting another is completely scientifically absurd. It's never been observed.
Exactly.
It cannot exist. It's the farthest from reality that I can imagine. Newton himself said that.
Okay,
so there goes gravity.
Exactly.
Okay, Keith, you'll have my back when I say this. It actually goes deeper than that when it comes to the origins of mass attracting mass. It's the Cavendish experiment, right?
Yeah, Cavendish. I think it's hilarious.
Cavendish, yes, with a C. Cavendish.
Well,
Cavendish
they started it with the Big
experiment,
Bang,
which
though.
was
They said all
observed
the
from how far,
hydrogen and lithium all fell into gravity and crushed
Right.
and formed into pockets of gas.
When everything sprang from nothing.
Yeah, gravity in the first place, which everything shrunk down to. I got a few different estimates from the size of an atom, which is crazy because a piece of dust has 5 quadrillion atoms on a piece of dust. That's crazy. And they say the Big Bang was smaller than that, and then I've also heard that it was as small as a human. So the story varies and depends where you read it.
You mean that mysterious event when everything sprang from nothing?
Yeah, when it all collapsed into the big and then exploded, and then later on the helium said, "Oh, hey helium, how you doing? Come here, let's get together and hang out." Like that's crazy.
Yeah. And Gene, do you mean that the Big Bang defies Newton's first law, which is the conservation of mass and energy?
A little bit.
It means the Big Bang defies all of science, basic science.
Well, it's in a vacuum, though, Rob.
Okay.
Oh, in a vacuum, which doesn't exist in nature. Wait, the only measurement we have of gravity comes from a. Yeah. So the only measurement we have of gravity comes from a vacuum. And there is no vacuuming in nature.
From a telescope.
Right.
So the Cavendish experiment, if I'm wrong, Keith, if you don't mind, was viewed from a telescope how long ago? Prior to Isaac Newton's apple dropping on his head. So the origins really come to mass attracting mass. But can you observe that in an enclosed system with your own observable, repeatable, testable experiments with your own data hypothesis and conclusions? I would love to see it.
Exactly what adding to what you're saying, Kevin, that mass attracting mass and balancing itself depending on their size and distances, it's crap.
This is going to be fun. Trust me.
It's absurd. It's crazy. And then what happened to entropy when things go from order to disorder,
Okay.
rather than
Right.
disorder to order,
Which we observe in
One
nature.
motion exactly. That's one motion, one velocity. That is one attraction. That is one gravity. That is one thing that's doing something at one time. It's not doing an elliptical orbit around a nuclear furnace that's 93 million miles away. How many different motions do we have to put into play for inertia to be completely diminished in every single way?
Right.
Well said, Kevin. Hey, Eddie has just joined us. Eddie, how are you, brother? It's too early for you in Japan.
Yeah, a little bit early. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. I had to charge my phone this morning. So hello, Gene, Rob, Keith, Kevin, and Vikka. Hello, everyone. Nice.
Hey, Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie.
Welcome. I can't wait to hear Eddie give us some insight on this gravity thing. One question I have for everybody, anybody, can anybody tell us the history of this concept called gravity? I've got the grammatical origin, and I've got the physics/science origin of it as well. And that doesn't have to happen.
The real definition, it's bullshit. That's the real definition. That no.
There you go. Right. Right.
It's a mass attracting mass which cannot be proven with observable, repeatable, testable experiments with data hypothesis and conclusions.
Okay. Okay. Notice gravity.
Where is he at? The apple must have been really big, dropping on his head.
I think he fell on the apple.
He must have been in
I wasn't drinking.
So here we go. The word gravity existed.
Oops, Rob, you're cutting out, Rob.
Okay, how about that? Is that better? Is that better, Vikka?
No, you have to go again.
There you go.
Now, go again.
Okay, good. The word gravity comes from a conversational term. We all know that the gravity of the conversation, okay, when we talk about certain topics, they're heavy, like the gravity of a conversation. You know, this just seems to me that the word gravity came from conversational application. They chose that word because it starts with G. Okay, G is 7, right? The Luciferian G for gravity. Gravity didn't have anything to do with science until they selected it for Newton's new concept called this attraction of mass upon mass. Okay, that's point 1. Okay, the Luciferian G. Okay, gravity. That's the grammatical origin. That's what it seems. Okay. Second of all, we only have one measurement of gravity, and that's the 9.8 meters per second squared. Can anybody tell us the history of that?
The constant speed of something that is dropping.
It's free fall.
Right.
Anything of free fall, right?
Terminal velocity.
Where is it measured?
9.8.
In which environment is it measured? It's measured in a vacuum. It's measured.
Okay, Rob, adding to what you were saying, gravitas, another meaning of gravity, the word comes from gravitas. I think it's gravitas from Latin.
Yeah.
And the meaning is quality of weight. That's the real meaning in Latin with gravi. And they also use the word in Latin, in Spanish, gravedad, no? Grave. Grave is something serious, you know? So there are two different definitions.
Yeah, something serious. So thank you for confirming me, Vikka. They took the word and they added a new definition. They invented their own garbage Luciferian definition. And why? Because it starts with G.
Bang.
You with me here? They could have chosen any word, but they chose gravity because it starts with G. Like the Golden Gate Bridge and the Masonic G. That's the Masonic Luciferian G. That's why they chose the word gravity.
That's why it should be called a scapegoat.
Number, of course,
It's a
they
scapegoat for everybody.
always have a proxy. They always have a fake actor, right? Now, second of all, where does the 9.8 acceleration come from? Which environment? It's in a vacuum. They can only get it in a vacuum. Why? Because objects don't fall uniformly in thin air, right? A piece of paper falls a lot slower than a bowling ball, for example, okay, or than a steel ball that weighs 3 ounces, okay? Items simply fall differently because of the air resistance of objects falling. So to eliminate all of that and to further deceive everybody, they place it in a vacuum.
Exactly.
So the 9.8 meters per second, the only measurement we have of gravity comes from a vacuum. Gentlemen, so let me ask you, so the measurement we have for this big gravity upon which we base all of our science, it comes from...
Rob, there's also some distortion while you are speaking. So try to change the mic.
Okay.
Maybe
All right.
if you can.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm getting that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
better?
okay.
I'm sorry about that. I'll monitor my device.
Yeah. To add what Rob was saying, it depends. It depends in the environment and the object. The environment it's in, and the object. How big is the mass or less mass, or how much is it? So depending on that, the speed could change. But Rob, apart from being it in vacuum, these people also add this number of 9.8 meter per second for many different objects, even in the environment.
And they add that in outer space.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the point is, where does the vacuum exist in nature? It doesn't. So we have this big measure of gravity, but it's in unlike environments. Using a measurement from a different environment is absurd. Scientifically, we cannot use it because a vacuum does not exist in nature. Using the measurement for something in a vacuum in nature, that is absurd. We cannot do that. It does not apply. So gravity is garbage based on that alone.
Honestly, Rob Taylor, take this into consideration as well. If mass is attracting mass on every different angle, why are we still at a perfect horizontal orbit?
Yeah, of course.
The whole solar system.
Of course.
But mass is
it's all
mass
garbage.
on every angle, but
It's
we're
all
at a perfect elliptical orbit every single time. That makes sense, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and nothing ever changes, right? Yeah.
Hey, what about this,
Yep,
guys?
it's all It's all hallucination.
How does it work where if you're 100 pounds in New York and you go to the equator, you weigh 5.5 ounces less? Can we do that with gold?
Okay, yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. And as we approach the pole, why aren't things floating off at the pole? Because there's less rotation up there, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand that. I'm not a jeweler or anything.
In other words,
does that make sense? Wouldn't everybody be doing that?
Exactly, right? We should buy at the pole and sell at the equator, right?
Well, you get 5.5 ounces of free gold every 100 pounds.
Or just get some
right?
clean water, or just get some clean water, make sure it's ionized, and then do your own experiment and then make sure gravity does not exist to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Gene, that's a fabulous point. In other words, we fail to observe gravity anywhere. For example, here's a perfect example. When we're sitting at a restaurant, we have ice in our drink. We pull out a block of ice and
you got distortion in the background, Rob, when you're speaking. So try to change. It's fuzzing. All right, so these people, they're also not only using it for the space and the planets and all this stuff. They're going in Milky Ways. They're going in galaxies. They're going far beyond everywhere. They're just pasting it from here, the gravity.
Yeah. So why is it not attracting other planets on every different side instead of saying a complete horizontal orbit?
Right. If the sun's gravity was so strong, it would attract the moon no different than the Earth. The moon would be.
It would attract the ISS as well.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Oops, Rob, you're cutting out.
And how does gravity hold the planets in a line with this invisible gravitational string, they call it?
That has to do with 96% of them being stupid, 96% of their dark matter and dark energy. So they use two unproven theories to try to prove the theory of gravity. It's just insane.
Right. Yeah. 96% of the universe is missing, according to these people.
Oh yeah, exactly.
you,
Yeah,
Keith.
that's why they invented dark matter, right? They invented dark matter to cover that.
Yeah. And
In other words,
E equals MC squared was designed to hide 8 inches per mile square, the real equation that can't be found either.
Well
Nobody
said. Well said. Exactly.
Thank you. Thanks. I really believe that, because you ask 100 people, you heard of that equation? If 98 of them will say, "Oh, sure." What does it mean? I have no idea. But it's about squaring the speed of light, which is the infinite speed. So how do you square something that can't be faster or more? Maybe it works in equations.
That was dope.
Right? Thank you. But seriously, maybe it works like in equations that are ridiculous and nonsensical to the world we live in. But how do you, if that's the ultimate speed, how are you going to square it? Squaring it, no less. Not even like adding to it. Squaring.
There is where Einstein comes in. Einstein. Yeah, Einstein is the one he was put in there to cover what Newton couldn't do in a way, to bring it relativity,
Exactly. Whenever you add up the timeline, Vikka Draziv, it's right after the Michelson-Morley experiment. And then right after the Michelson-Morley experiment happens, then the special relativity happens with his dumbass, what's his name?
Einstein.
Einstein. I love not knowing.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, that's what happens whenever you look at the timeline. Michelson-Morley experiment
happened,
which proves that the Earth is not spinning, it's not rotating, it's fixed, it's established, not to be moved, just like the Bible says. And then right after that, like almost 14 years later, then they released this Jesuit propaganda puppet. And his name is, again, I forget.
Einstein.
I love not knowing his name. Then he came out with the special theory of relativity right after. How ironic when it comes to the timeline.
Yeah, and Einstein predicted all the James Webb stuff too, by the way.
Right, but the thing he was bought into was because, according to Einstein, it's not because there's a mass, he's extracting mass. Now he's coming up with his own version of relativity, which shows in a way, he's trying to define gravity, because, as you mentioned, Kevin, because of Marcel Morley, because of Tesla, these guys were kicking their ass. That's why they had to bring in somebody to put in the fake maths. And so what Einstein's version is saying, that the time is bending, the space. That's why it's happening there. That's why everything is going down in a circle and falling down. You saw that experiment. They put in a ball on a piece of cloth, a ball in the middle, and they throw another ball which goes. That's the version of Einstein's gravity. Yeah. Okay, so what's happening is that time, actually, it's a man-made concept. Okay, how can it's gonna have curving, in space? So another bullshit. They brought in somebody else, but it's equally bullshit. Go ahead, Kevin.
It's anything that
prove it one
time
is that. Prove mass attracting mass through your own observable, repeatable, testable experiment with your own data, hypothesis, and conclusion, and shut all the flat earthers up. It won't happen because it hasn't been done.
Exactly, and show us how to bend the time, because time don't have properties that
It's a man-made stuff.
Relativity is a laughing joke. Honestly, it's a laughing stock right now.
Newton himself said, one mass attracting mass does not happen, not observable, never has been observed. So if I'm just going to make this connection here, this occurred to me a few weeks ago. If gravity's garbage, and we just gave 14 examples that it's garbage, it's nothing. there goes relativity. There goes relativity, because relativity depends on gravity. So, and there goes relativity, there goes quantum physics and astrophysics.
Whoop, there goes gravity.
It all goes away when we destroy gravity. It's all gone. And gentlemen, remember, I am a Jesuit trained undergraduate engineer, trained at an undergraduate university called West Point Military Academy. I remember my courses, and I wish I could go back there and show them all, look, this is all garbage, and here's why. This is the basis of the engineering at the universities. Gentlemen, I'm telling you, the engineers and the pilots, they believe this garbage. They take tests on it. I took tests on it. I confirmed that the quote gravity on the moon is one sixth of the gravity here on the Earth. And I put 2 lines under it with an ANS. There's my answer. And that was exactly right, because I memorized how to do their bullshit equations. If you see what I mean. I have personal interest here. It's all garbage. You see what I mean?
Exactly. And the equations were there. Yeah, right, Rob. And the equations and this fake math was there, and all this bullshit of relativity was there, just so that the scientists, the later scientists, don't question Newton's Principias.
We all think we're smart because we memorized and we got indoctrinated properly, and we never question it. There you go.
Until you observe it. You observe it.
Right. Until I observe it and I recognize what I'm looking at, instead of a pig looking at a wristwatch, which we all are, until someone says, "Hey, wake up! This doesn't match here. There's something wrong." That's when we wake up. When we realize there's
honestly, Rob. Hey, Rob, I can throw an alarm clock at some people and they still wouldn't be awake.
Exactly. Some people don't want it. The matrix is hard to grasp.
You can really equate this to real life and waking people up for real, though. Some people wake up nice and easy, and some people you can play music loud around them, and it's harder to wake people up, and that's just what we're looking at right now. It truly
but
is.
If we can debunk gravity to begin with, which is the origins of the spherical spinning ball, then it debunks all of it to begin with. If 2 times hydrogen, 1 time oxygen has the properties of staying level and flat, and Earth is known as 70% water, let alone the abyssal plains, then 70% of the Earth is flat.
All right, aren't we 70% water also?
It comes to a certain ratio when it comes to in particular person. I could not tell you a ratio of water when it comes to 2 times hydrogen, 1 time oxygen.
It's in general, yes. It's
generally close.
Generally that. So next, here's what we need to talk about next: the examples that gravity does not exist, meaning ice floating in water, an apple floating in water, a human body floating in water and not sinking, a ship floating in water, whereas 300 tons of steel sinks to the bottom, but 300 tons in the shape of a ship floats on the water and it's not going to sink. So why can't gravity?
That's why an anvil floats in liquid mercury.
Exactly. That's the next example.
And Kevin, you did a great experiment with eggs and water, plain water, and salt water. And
I did it
alone
with,
is like
honestly, I did it with multiple.
I did it with such a small difference.
Thank you so much, Gene.
Oh yeah, bro, that was great. That was excellent. And did you use sugar instead too?
No, I used sand. I used sugar. I used every grain that had the similar chemical molecular structure as salt did.
Yeah, and it showed all the differences.
And it also has to do with the phosphorus material of, for example, the eggshell or orange, or so it's all about also the.
That's why I used multiple objects, because I've only seen it done with an egg. That's why I used carrots. I used you guys probably seen the experiment before. If you wouldn't mind posting the link in the comments. I did it with carrots. I did it with eggs. I did it with how many different other objects that had different densities and different masses in quotation?
Oh yeah, for definitely there are many other more experiments also that yeah, but we're gonna get there to that part of the show a bit about the density and the buoyancy and all this stuff. What I wanted to add before we move on was about the Einstein stuff. So the Einstein's fake theories only works at the speed of light or in a black hole or billions of miles away, which cannot be proved. Okay, so what's happening is that all their stuff they are bringing after Newton to Einstein, it's still theoretical. It looks good in the book, you could try to explain it in a book, but in reality, in practicals, it's not possible to prove
It is blind
any
faith
of the theories, and
indoctrinated.
gravity included, right? Yep, go ahead.
Exactly. You cannot prove it at all, any way, shape, or form.
Right, exactly. It's not observable, testable, or repeatable. Then that's how the entire heliocentrism works. I'm going to add here. I'll assume everybody here knows this, but the distance of the Earth to the Sun, the 93 million, is the end result of. It used to be 8,000, and then 12,000, 15,000, 50,000, and then it started becoming a few million, and then 12 million.
Right.
The sun was not always, in their theory, was not always 93 million.
No, they changed it throughout the years.
Right. The distance to the sun increased as technology advanced, so people could now observe that far. They had to make it so far out of reach that nobody can reach it or experiment on it. That's
it's
what
still,
they've done.
honestly, it's still a complete horizontal orbit. How is that possible with gravity mass and attracting mass to begin with?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Kevin,
So
what you're touching on there is one of the main problems with the whole heliocentric hypothesis, and that is the three-body problem. The three-body problem is this.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Third law of Isaac Newton's motions.
If the Earth's going around the sun, they can make that work. But as soon as they put a third body into their equations, it goes crazy, and they cannot make it work. So I mess with Globbers all the time. It's like, where is your working? You don't have a working model at all.
Right. So how can this ever work?
Yeah. The funniest thing about the three-body problem, if you pull it up on YouTube, one little short video will come up, somebody doing a TED Talk, about 5 minutes. And at the end of the presentation, he'll say, if you want more information on this, and then they recommend a science fiction novel for you to go look for about the three-body problem.
More fantasy.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that's what it is. And gentlemen, I want to bring up something that I'm going to throw out the term dynamic buoyancy. Okay? Because and now here's what it is. This is a simple concept. An aircraft weighs, let's say an aircraft on the tarmac, motionless, it weighs 40 tons. But now when we fly that thing, we roll that thing 88 miles per hour forward. Okay, reference Back to the Future. When we roll the airplane forward 88 miles an hour, okay, it will lift off the ground effortlessly. And now if we weigh that thing, it's lighter than the air because it's floating in the air. We can call that dynamic buoyancy because it's moving now. It's got airflow over the wings. The Bernoulli principle. We don't need to review how the airplane literally sucks the air up in. I'm sorry, sucks
high
the
pressure,
wing
low
up
pressure.
into the air. Okay, high pressure versus low pressure. The low pressure over the wing, while the air is moving over the wing, that creates a low pressure, which is a vacuum compared to the higher pressure underneath. Literally, it's a vacuum that lifts that airplane up in the air. Okay, that's how it works. That's dynamic buoyancy. But why can't gravity pull it down? It weighs 40 tons. It weighs 40 tons. How can it float in the air?
Let's take a beach ball. Honestly, let's take a beach ball, throw it at the bottom of a swimming pool, and watch buoyancy happen yet again.
Yeah.
On a proper synopsis.
There. Kevin, exactly. I thought of this. Take a helium balloon. We've all had helium balloons, and we've all tried to throw them down to the floor. They'll never hit the floor. Well, if they have enough helium in them, you could throw them at the floor, and they don't hit the floor. They want to climb. They want to flow up to the ceiling. Where's gravity? Gravity can't even pull down a helium balloon. You see what I mean? Gravity is pretty
Gravity
weak.
can't even
It
have
can't
an
even pull down a
anvil.
helium balloon.
Gravity can't even have an anvil sink in liquid mercury.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what more is there to say?
100 pounds.
Not only,
Yeah,
not only
it
will
yeah.
let me throw this out.
Go ahead,
Not
Kevin.
only will the anvil float, not only will the anvil float on Mercury, you can stand on it.
Because of density. The density
Because
molecule of the certain structure in the medium that is surrounding. That
That's
is
right,
the
because-
one
Exactly.
certain things.
That's it.
But there's also multiple aspects that and
And-
variables that come into play when it comes to gravity. It's a very complex subject, yes, but there's also a yin and a yang. There's people that don't want to hear the truth. There's
And-
people like us.
And
They-
and adding to what Rob was saying about the dynamic buoyancy about the plane. So, and it also depends on the environment and the medium also, as Kevin was also saying. So different layers have different density, different. So we have the earth layer, the most below. We have the water, the ocean, the second layer, and then we have the air. And when as we go up higher, we get the gases. So it's all about different layers, and depending on the different layers. For example, in the water, if we don't swim, we're gonna drown, right? So the same thing is happening with the plane. The plane is moving, it's having motion, So
Very good.
because that it's not defying any gravity, it's all
Swimming through
because
a liquid.
yeah, it's swimming through. It's the element it's in, the medium it's in, And with the aerodynamics of the plane and the thrust. So
Correct.
go ahead. Yep.
By the way,
Exactly.
Yeah,
when it comes to
here's
global levers, troposphere, stratosphere, methosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, outer space. Are you kidding me? When it comes to different layers of this,
right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Here's as a side note for everybody, if you take a slow motion version of a bird in flight, a bird literally swims through the air like a human leg and arm swims through the water.
Yep.
I'll say it again. A bird flies in the air like a human swims in water. It's no different.
but gravity.
Exactly. And the fish in the water. Yep. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Well, I was gonna say, isn't air typically similar to the opposite of water? Air is just a thin, super thin water.
It's two times hydrogen, one time oxygen.
Air behaves as water at high air speeds.
Okay.
At high speeds. That's what
Right.
we
Like
say.
you stick your hand out the window of a car. It's sort of like swimming through the air. It acts the
because
same.
you're
The
at
aerodynamics are so similar.
At a higher speed, air behaves as water. Now,
Let's honestly, Rob, let's take your car, let's start tilting it, let's start spinning it, and let's throw around an elliptical orbit 93 million miles away from the elliptical furnace and act like inertia is still going to come into play.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Where's the parallax here? Where's the Coriolis of all this rotation they're talking about? Okay, where is it? We see none of it. There's the North Star. It's been there for time immemorial, right? It's been there forever. There is no spinning. By the way, centrifugal force, let's talk about that. If the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour, where's the centrifugal force forcing objects away from center of rotation instead of towards?
Honestly, Rob, haven't you flushed a toilet in the north
versus
the north,
the south?
and haven't you flushed a toilet in the south, or no?
Opposite?
Well, that's
No,
what they say. That's why we weigh less at the equator, because we're being forced out just ever so slightly, so we weigh less. But
BS! Take a scale and do it.
Hold on a second. How do they explain weighing less on top of Mount Everest or Pikes Peak? Because that's what they say. You weigh less at the top of your head than you do at your feet, because there's less gravity there, and every foot you go, gravity is just a nanosecond less. It's a silly story.
They still haven't proven gravity, so they can't use that term.
That's why I will stay with the proper properties of two-time hydrogen, one-time oxygen, knowing it lays flat and level when it comes to bodies of water.
Remember, we talked about satellites. There is no proper definition of satellite. Guess what? There's no proper definition of gravity either, because there is no measurement of it. There is, because it doesn't exist.
There is no gravity.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
I get all the time when people want to tell me about gravity and gravity. I say, "What do you mean? Define gravity for me." You keep saying that word, but I don't think you know what it means.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, guys, the conversation is really awesome. We're gonna just take a short break, and we're gonna be back. All right, just a couple of minutes.
By the way,
Excellent.
congratulations, everybody. We've destroyed the Luciferian universities, which is the same. University is an anagram of Luciferian, by the way. Anagrams. They live in anagrams.
Good luck, G, when it comes to Freemasonry.
G,
Oh, yeah.
gravity, Luciferian Masonic G. That's why they chose that word. Go ahead, Vikka.
No.
All right. See you guys in a minute.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to the show, guys. What an awesome show we are having today. We are ripping out gravity in its totality. So, welcome back to the show. Just gonna give a shout out to the people in the chat. Dr. Frankenstein is there. We got FE Nation, Tom Buddhas, Rob's also there in the chat. There are a few people from Facebook. We're gonna see their names. There's Jeannie. There's Good Times for All. Then Daryl Patton and a few others from Facebook. So, yep, welcome back to the show, guys. And yep, one of the most important factor that we cannot count, that we should count on, that is real science, which was also used by Archimedes about density and buoyancy. So these are also the two things. Density and buoyancy is not only about drowning things, but it's also about rising. And depending on the layers, every layer and every object in that layer have a scale, whether it drowns or whether it rise. For example, if we put a balloon in water with air, it's gonna rise. And in the same balloon, if we're gonna put cement, it's gonna drown, right? So the same thing is happening with us human beings. We are
Yes,
drowned
sir.
in the
Yes,
layer of
sir.
air, and we are stick to the ground because we cannot go more under the ground. We are stick to the ground, like the instead of seabed we are on the airbed and walking because we are denser than the medium we are in. Okay, go
Properly
ahead. Anybody
said.
wants to add?
That's why grounding is something we naturally detoxify from. You take your natural foot and put it on anything that's made from earth, it will detoxify yourself, knowing the fact that we are positive EMF, not negative EMF. That's why it takes out the negativity of us when it comes to us grounding and walking around with our feet.
EMF is electromagnetic frequency, right?
EMF, yes, that's a proper synopsis when it comes to the acronym.
Right.
So, if you don't mind, I'll just throw this out. Science 101. If we want to observe something and we observe any phenomenon,
do it repeatable.
Observable, repeatable, testable. Okay. If we're gonna make something into a philosophy where we can depend on definitions, look at all the examples where we show that gravity fails. Okay. A block of wood floats in water. It falls in air, but it floats in water. Okay. Does water defy gravity then? It seems to. An apple will float in water, but it falls flat to the table on the thin air. Okay.
Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper than that.
But
let's go deeper than that when it comes to the EMF. Go ahead.
Yeah, hold a sec. You can have it. You can have it next. But the simple observation here is this: gravity is not universal. We cannot observe it. Like I said, we cannot observe it. We cannot observe its effects. Whereas density or buoyancy, we can observe that. We can measure it, repeat it, and test it.
Yes, sir.
In other words, density and buoyancy defines the world around us. Gravity is nothing.
If you wouldn't mind, Rob Taylor.
Exactly.
And yet again, we apply simple science to the world around us, and we see that heliocentrism and gravity and all that other garbage, it fails upon a simple test of basic science. That's my point.
It is blind faith, indoctrinated, religious, theoretical, nihilistic opinion philosophy. That's what it is.
Thank you. There we go.
Exactly. That's why Archimedes never took in account in his experiments the bullshit of Newton. That's why in his experiment for density and buoyancy.
It must have been a big apple that dropped on his head for him to realize that gravity exists.
Exactly right. Yeah, more like
this Royal Society member. I'm not even a common philosopher because we're the philosophers. This Royal Society, alchemist, Freemason, POS, had an apple drop on his head in 1666, and then all of a sudden gravity exists prior to the Cavendish experiment? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a one big self-licking ice cream cone. Every new experiment reflects the previous back to the apple. You know what? I'm going to submit now, gentlemen. It wasn't an apple. It was one big fat mushroom.
yeah, right. And Kevin, adding to what you were saying, according to Cavendish was done in the 1700s about the mass, and it wasn't a very awesome result and everything. You know what happened lately? These people, the scientists from now, they try doing the same thing with much more precise instrument and which much more with much more higher technology. They try to do the Cavendish experiment, and they are failing. The results are 10 times away from what they're saying what is in the Cavendish. So even with their today's technology, they try to redo it, and it's all coming negative. It's not showing any proof of gravity.
Because truth prevails every single time. I take 2 times oxygen, 1 time oxygen out of my sink kitchen, and I put a couple different things in ionized water and unionized water, which proves things coming up from down. Yes, things are going to sink due to density molecule of the certain object in the medium that's surrounding, right? But things drop down due to the fact that the Earth is the negative of our positive when it comes to the firmament.
That's the electric pressure.
Yeah, I think we need to give a shout out to Good Times for All if he's in the chat. He's the one that did a little short video, an excellent one on the incoherent electrostatic acceleration.
Yeah.
Which the way I understand that is that the Earth has a negative charge that you can measure, and if you leave the surface of the Earth, you become positively charged, and that positive charge gets stronger the higher you go, and so those electrical forces want to attract that negative and positive, and that's part of
Keith, great job.
That's part of the that's part of what's taught at MIT Physics 3. Walter Lewin, he's passed away now, but he's got a lot of good lectures on YouTube. And he basically relegated gravity to space and time far from Earth. It says it works with the planets. And as I said earlier, that's 96% two unproven theories of dark matter and dark energy. But he said close to Earth, what governs things here, electrical forces, which are 26 times stronger than gravity. So we live in, as we talked about last week, we live in an electric topographical stationary plane, but these electrical forces and electromagnetism governs why things fall down, not just relative density. I think there's some kind of a balance there between relative density and the electrical forces that we witness.
Exactly. With the mass attracting mass on an electromagnetic way is provable and real science. Okay, the magnetism is a real science. That is the only thing that could attract something, not gravity.
They're also able to rearrange the ionization on certain objects and when they zap them with the right electricity, these things are floating. So now that's what they're showing us now, but they have anti-gravity devices. So it's not anti-gravity, it's anti-acceleration, anti-electrical pressure is what it is.
Yes.
So they have these things. So just because they're showing it to us attached to wires, that's just
more of a magnetic levitation kind of stuff, So yes, it could be possible in the higher altitudes, or even in the atmosphere, as you said, Jeannie. They could have technology that could just
I think it's
float.
MIT, and it's something small like a kite with a big surface area, and it's very lightweight, so it's easy to manipulate these things like that because it's not a vat of mercury or an anvil with such a high volume of mass, right?
There's different metals that are made out of different electromagnetic forces that actually gravitate, with lack of better words, magnetates things quicker than other metals would, like aluminum.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the thing in these layers. So if the gravity is supposed to be pulling all these oceans and all these planets and rotating everything, so how come the leaves from a tree is falling, the birds are flying? How come the fish, if the gravity is so strong in the oceans, the fish shouldn't be able to swim freely with this pull of the gravity, right?
That's right. Fish is a good example because they're floating because they're the same density as the medium they're in.
Exactly, and they have that motion to keep going ahead, same way the airplane does, So, yep, only magnetism could be explained for these kind of things, and the density and buoyancy also, So, we have to understand that what are the different mediums and how things work. So there's a scale of positive and negative. Let's put that scale. Negative is drowning and positive is rising. So there's a scale or an axis. We have an axis and an object. Yeah. So the object and the medium it's in. So there's a point on that axis or on that scale. Depending on the object, it will rise or fall. So what happens when these people are in the 0G planes that they're saying they're anti-gravity, they're
They're making anti-gravity happen in those 0G plane. What is happening is that in the environment they are in, so depending on their body weight and in the environment they are in, and because the plane is falling, so on this axis of positive and negative, they are neutral. They are in the midpoint of that scale of density and buoyancy of the object and the environment. So they just lose that. Once you are in neutral, you are not floating, you are not drowning, you are not rising, you are neutral, you are floating. A really good example of density and buoyancy. No gravity bullshit at all.
Bang.
It's almost like a roller coaster.
Oh yeah. So that's why the people, these science lovers and all these NASA fanboys, we are trying to overcome gravity with these airplanes, with this. So there's a perfect example what is really happening on that
Of
axis.
it being BS to begin with. You are lowering your velocity at a certain speed that will have an equilibrium of your density that is not observable at the exact place that you're at. Sorry if I'm over talking.
No. Go ahead.
Rob Taylor, whenever you are declining a flight, when it comes to an airplane, gravity doesn't exist all of a sudden. Why?
That's because it didn't exist to begin with. It didn't exist when we take off. It doesn't exist when we're cruising, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't magically appear anywhere along the way. It's never been a factor. It's not a factor anywhere. It's like Coriolis, never a factor. Just doesn't. It simply does not exist.
So
yeah.
wouldn't weight have an effect on gravity as well? Like, so you have weight and gravity, isn't that right? That makes sense. So if you drop a 10-pound bowling ball versus a 20-pound, sorry,
I can answer that. Here's how they do it, and I'm speaking from physics equations from the universities. Right. Weight is defined as mass times gravity. Okay. Notice they define their definitions have the gravity in there, and it's 9.8. You with me here? It's the 9.8. Right. So what's the difference between weight and mass? Remember when we're all in 10th grade chemistry, everybody has a problem separating mass from weight. That's because there is no difference. Weight and weight is weight. Okay. Here's because only let me tell you, only the Luciferians separate mass from weight. And why? To support their gravity garbage. Let me tell you, everybody here, I'm not sure if anybody else is aware of this. Before Newton, let's talk about the measurement of weight before Newton. There was no such thing as gravity. The world, let me say, the science world measured weight according to the surrounding medium.
Right.
Okay. Let me say that again. Story. We end of story. Okay. We measured weight according to the surrounding medium. For example, an apple weighs half a pound in thin air, but in water we can't measure the weight of an apple because it's floating on the top. Same with a block of wood. A block of wood pounds or whatever it weighs in thin air, but it doesn't weigh anything on water. So therefore, and what I'm saying is, before Newton, the whole world measured weight according to its surrounding medium. That is a fundamental difference between our science and previous and prior to Newton's science. The science we have is garbage. The science we have is therefore garbage at the universities.
The science that we can prove is observable, repeatable, and testable.
Science. Rob, I got a question for you, Rob. I weigh out my coffee in the morning. I weigh the grinds and I weigh the water. And what I noticed is if I put too much in, I'll take the spoon and take a little out. The scale will pick up the weight of the spoon without me letting go of it. And if I put a half inch of the spoon in, it picks up a little weight. If I put a half the spoon in without touching the cup, it's picking up part of the weight of the spoon until the point where I get, the depth of a quarter away, and then it measures only half of the spoon. And then when I drop it in, it measures the whole entire thing. What is that? Is it just measuring the pressure?
Is it measuring your ionized salt water? Do you have a water softener run through your house?
I got a full house water filter. It's really good,
Dang.
actually. And but if I got, let's say, 401 grams, and I'm going to take a gram out, the scale picks up the spoon without me touching anything but the water.
Due to the ionized level of the salt water you have your filtration system running through.
Well, when your spoon touches whatever weight that is on the scale, it's going to measure the partial amount of that spoon that is being supported by the weight that's on the scale.
Right, but how I just find that strange. So is it just acting like another drop of water until they let it go?
That is correct.
Okay.
Think of a proportion. Chemistry is all about proportions. Your hand is holding some of the spoon, but when you see the weight on the scale change, part of the weight of the spoon is being supported by the scale, by the water in the cup. What you're talking about.
Oh, right, because it would become more buoyant in my hand as the more it goes in the water. Well, the spoon is not real buoyant, but
and Jeannie, your hand, even if you think your hand is very, very still, it still have movements. Okay, it's gonna, for example, if you think instead of a water or a coffee, think of filled with wheat or something, and let's try doing the same thing with the wheat. There is gonna add some weight to it. So, my opinion. Go ahead.
All right,
Rob.
Here's another thing, Gene, on that side. If anybody's ever studied physics, think of a rolling slope and a weight there, and there's friction. There's a normal force. It's called want F. That's called the weight, the applied force, the normal force, the tension. Imagine a cable pulling that weight up the slope, and there's friction involved. And there's an angle of the slope. Okay, the angle of the slope, everything's proportional to the angle of that slope. Okay, so we can apply that. The angle of the slope on an angled diagram there that I told you about, we can apply that to the weight of the spoon in your hand. Your fingers are holding most of the weight, but when that spoon touches the weight of the whatever mass it is on that scale, then part of the weight of that spoon is going on the scale, and it's going to change the readout of the scale. A proportion. You see what I mean there? That's all it is. Simple concept.
I just find it interesting how it only picked up a portion of it until I let it go. It's just interesting. And thank you. And I understand that a lot better. Makes a lot of sense. Very steep angle.
So here's a classic example. Let's take 300 tons of rolled steel ingots. We'll tie them together, and then we'll throw them in the ocean. They go straight to the bottom. But now fish all that steel out of the ocean and make a ship out of it. Now that ship weighs 300 tons. The same 300 tons, it's a ship floating on the water, and now that ship can carry 900 more tons on top of it. But wait,
so
why can't gravity pull the 300 tons to the bottom, but why can't it pull the 1,000 tons that's floating now on the top of the water? Where's gravity? It doesn't exist, does it?
Bang.
A lot of times I tell people when I'm speaking with them at a table or just standing there talking with them, I say, you want to defy gravity right now? Go jump in a pool. Because the human body floats at the top of the water. Why can't gravity pull it down? Because gravity simply does not exist. We cannot observe gravity. And
No, so the
anybody who tries to
electrical
make
pressure
to invent
pushes.
some garbage reason. Say again.
The electrical pressure pushes you through the medium as long as you're more dense than that.
Yeah, density versus buoyancy. And anybody who tries to invent some imaginary description, which they always do, we've all seen it. Those people are they refuse to acknowledge the obvious in front of them. That's all they're doing.
Yeah,
Mainly
well,
because
people still
Exactly,
think they walk on the
and they're
moon, though.
defending. Yeah, they're defending all the crap that even the people who invented that crap don't believe in this. For example, the Newton and the Einstein. Yeah, and these people are defending it like as if they have written themselves and they have proved it themselves.
You're
in other
right.
words, they're adding to the textbook that they had in school that doesn't even exist, but they're adding to it and they're trying to quote it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What were you saying about the moon, Genie?
No, I was just saying that people still think we went to the moon. It's crying out loud.
Right. Exactly.
How are you going to talk to them about stuff like this if they think there's, rovers on Mars and stuff? We can't go to the moon, but we got helicopters on Mars. Hello.
Exactly. There's no atmosphere. We've got helicopters up there. Helicopters fly in what? Wind? There's no air on Mars. How can helicopters fly?
They can barely they what kind of special helicopter do they need, Rob, to get people off of Mount Everest? Right? They
my
need
gosh, it
special
doesn't
helicopters
exist.
to get up to there. But they got drones on Mars. Come on.
Yeah. It's absurd. All of it's
That's
absurd.
a tough one. Yeah, and
And
they'll
it
defend it
doesn't
like you said, Vikka. They did it themselves. Like they're taking it personal. They're very insulted, and it hurts them. They're too bad, right, Kev?
There you go. They're
Yes,
like,
sir.
You're
Yes,
in your
sir.
feelings.
Do your own observable, repeatable, testable experiment with your own data, hypothesis, and conclusion, and then tell me what's up. Show me mass attracting mass to begin with.
Right. Don't invent something. Show it. Prove it. Show me an example.
With your own data, with your own hypothesis, with your own observable, repeatable experiment. Multiple times. Show me multiple times you've done it.
So let me ask you something. How does gravity affect the atmosphere? Right? It holds the
level?
atmosphere down in a
The
gradient.
troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the
And
thermosphere,
it
the exosphere.
decreases
Which one?
gradient rate.
And it must be pretty strong because it holds the atmosphere against the infinite space.
Second law of thermodynamics, very properly said,
man.
Bob Taylor.
Help us.
Most people have it in their heads that gravity holds the air to the earth against the infinite vacuum of space.
Yeah,
So
in a gradient rate where it tapers off to nothing little by little. So eventually you only got one molecule of air up there.
Yeah.
How about
precisely. Right. So at sea level, we've got 14 psi.
Yeah.
Against the infinite vacuum of space. Excuse me, infinite is infinite. People don't even know what infinity. Most people don't even recognize what infinity really means. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they will defend it to their last breath.
To infinity and beyond, they will defend it.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Well said. Beautiful.
Yeah, the Globers like to parrot. That's because that's the indoctrinated education has teaching them to parrot what they've been taught without questioning, and they're very good at it. They just parrot, and whatever is there, a little bit they know about it, but they can't really explain it. Not even their best people can explain it, or really do an observable, repeatable experiment and show and shut everybody flat earthers up. But it's not working, Yeah,
Honestly,
it's not working.
Honestly, Vikka Draziv very well said. It's 2022 by now. Like, we're getting the last
1022.
laugh. 2022? Sorry, Genie.
1022. They added 1,000 years.
Oh! No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So here's what it is. What are we noting? Most people will parrot whatever the government says to their last breath. And now let me add it in there. Whatever mother government says, we are indoctrinated to believe the schools and the government as if they are our parents. We have a love. I mean, we have a love for government and schools. Most people will never challenge it. They'll never question it because it's been indoctrinated into their very spine.
Yeah.
Until it comes to
Well,
people
well,
like me and you and Vikka and Jeannie and Eddie and Keith, people are not going to step to us because we're actually representing something that is going against the system in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I love it.
well said. Well said. Jeannie, go ahead. I wanted to add something before. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm good, man. Thank you.
So I think the problem with the human psyche is they love to live blind, to, how do you say that, they know they've been not superstitious. It's like more about, how do you say, they know
They need
that
to
they
be
have
led.
been, no, not about led to. It's more about, that people know that the government and all the people who control are really screwing us and not telling us the lie. But it's a psyche of human to live indoctrinated, to live, because it's a way of protection,
Comfortability.
like.
They feel comfortable. That's a form of apathy. They're comfortable in
That's
their
right.
ignorance. They don't want anything to challenge it because then they're not comfortable anymore.
Yeah, and it's also,
Red pill.
yeah, and it's shown that to the past history, it's shown that the humans are like a body, reacts in a way to protect itself. A human body has in its own senses. If it senses danger, it will protect itself. So the same way, the human psyche have this shit that they have to live in this indoctrinated world the way it is for them to preserve itself. It's a way of self-defense. Okay, just putting this
That's
out
why
there.
we
Okay,
called
Yes,
your,
it is.
go ahead.
that's
That's
why you
great.
called your podcast. My bad.
It's human nature. What do we say? A human can be smart. A human can be reasonable, but people are crazy. They're volatile. They're wacky. And the half of them, at least, well, most people, they don't care what they're doing. They just want to eat and sleep.
That's
They don't
why
wanna
Vikka
think for
Draziv
themselves.
called his podcast Heliopsychosis.
Psychosis. Most people live in a state of permanent psychosis, and they will until they think outside of it, and it's so hard to do.
But these people are coming around. Elon Musk recently said publicly that we ought to start thinking about space travel in a more horizontal way, whatever that means. But he said it.
Well,
He's a
talking
robot
about
too, by the way. He's not even a human.
Gene, he's talking
Yeah.
about airplanes.
Right. Yeah,
Horizontal.
well, he
horizontal
said rocket
plane.
travel.
Right.
He said
Yeah.
rocket travel, space travel in a more horizontal way. Something to that effect.
Well, rockets can't function in space because there's nothing for them to push off of. So he's talking about a jet engine, which is a rocket.
Hmm.
Horizontal rockets are what? Airplane engines. There
Very
you go.
cool.
He's talking
Yeah.
about plane travel, airplanes. When we get
Yeah.
real, right? When we look at when we open up the real box, the reality box, that's what he's saying. Remember, Elo is the Elo of Elohim, and you put
Bang.
an N on it, negatives, it negates the holy creators. So Elon is equal to Antichrist. There you go.
It's an anagram of Antichrist.
There you go. It's a definition, by definition, right? Alien, by the way, everybody else, I don't know if this might be new, but the word alien is an anagram of Elohim.
Bang.
Okay. And if we look at the alien story, they come from outer space, meaning beyond the Rakia, although they don't admit the Rakia. They've invented space. Okay. Alien is, and they say that aliens created the earth. Well, if you change alien back into its parent word, which is Elohim, that's exactly right. The Elohim created the earth, but space is not what they say it is. So they changed space, they changed the word Elohim to alien, but the story is the same. In other words, the heliocentrism is only based on reality. They've just counterfeited it. It's a counterfeit. It's an anagram and a counterfeit.
They've manipulated and Did whatever they could to take us out of the reality that we live in.
Right. They've taken enough steps away from the original that most people will never question it.
And it's
Exactly,
perverted
and they
in
have
every
the
single way.
right, and they have the most convenient word they have to explain their whole universe.
Gravity.
Light
Is
years away,
gravity.
and they're happy, man. They have the best word. They paste it everywhere, so for everything. So it's escape. It's a mystery that even Neil deGrasse Tyson or nobody can explain. And we are here shredding it out. It's right from the start, from Newton to Einstein to these clowns right now. The
Yes,
only
sir.
thing that they could try to put it in their theoretical way, it could work in the billions of light years away at the speed of light in the black hole. So nothing here, nothing. Their science is not working here. The gravity is not working here, because if we see, as we discussed in the last podcast about the electrical universe and with electrical planes, how it works, the same way what we saw today about the gravity, it's not freaking working. There are different layers of different elements, and every object in that element on its own axis depends rise and fall. It's that simple. Okay, there could be things floating because of the ions and changing the ion. There could be some technology that thing could float, but that's not anti-gravity. So if there is no gravity, there is no anti-gravity. So
That's right.
Amen.
And how about Neil A. backwards is alien too? So them and their backwardsness is right in our face with that one. Neil A. Armstrong. Moon landing anniversary is coming up soon, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. Neil A. There you go. Read it backwards. These people, these Luciferians, they thrive on anagrams. Now, and why? Why do they thrive on anagrams? Because there is no doctrine for them. They have to invent their doctrine, even their very terminology, from the original.
They can't just speak freely in front of us.
Oh, Gene edited. Gene has to be edited.
There are no terms to describe their false world, so they have to take the original and counterfeit. There you go.
Yeah.
And like Gene said, they can't speak normally. They have to speak in code.
Yeah.
Esoteric versus exoteric.
Signs and symbols and flags and dragons and bullshit.
BBBBBBS.
But you know what? That's going to tear them apart, because we're not stupid. We're not that vulnerable to them, and not like most people seem to be.
How threatening are we, Gene? Do you know what I mean? When it comes to Keith, when it comes to Eddie, when it comes to Rob,
you want to know how
when it comes
threatening
to
we are?
Vikka,
We took
destroying one of the
took out the
bases.
James Webb telescope, you guys. That's what we did. How you doing? I really believe we did that. Not us, all of us. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
And I love you regardless.
And you and your feelings, bro. Right?
Hey, that's esoteric information to a small group or some amount of people that personalize
I didn't say anything bad.
Not exoteric,
exactly.
Not information intended for the masses. Actually, let's go ahead and say it. Forget you and your feelings is what I say.
Thank you.
Honestly, me and Gene, we've had a conversation. I say
Thank you
forget
very
you
much.
and your feelings, which is kind of making this just tougher.
No, that's what.
Exactly.
Just for now.
We love science, we love science, that's why we are here. And we are here for these globestars or any of these science lovers and NASA lovers to come and do some real science, no speaking about billions of miles away and fake maths and fake theories and fake formulas. It looks good in the text, in CGI and images, but it doesn't work in reality, in practical. Show us and shut us up. We are here. So gravity in reality, it's a hoax, so a big hoax, a one word for all their bullshit, and it's not working on this plane. So, all right, guys, an amazing conversation, and we could have gone forever on this, but we're going to be having our last thoughts on gravity, and we're going to be saying goodbye, guys. So, who's going first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate everybody in the chat. It's great to see you all. I hope you had fun with this little talk we had, shredding gravity and the nonsense that it really equals out to be. I had a great time, and I hope you come back. And guys, it's always great to see you all. Thanks to everybody for being here. Rob, Kevin, Eddie. Eddie's got some great videos. You guys go to Flat Earth Banjo and subscribe to Eddie's channel. Some of them are so funny. Eddie, I love your stuff, brother. It's great.
Thank
Keith,
you.
Keith, great to see you, bro. And keep up those videos, dude. I like how you summing up things with the walks in the morning. Very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool, brother. And everybody have a great week, man. It's great to be here. Thanks again, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Proper. Do you mind if I go next?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Vikka Draziv. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Rob Taylor. Thank you, Eddie Alencar. Thank you, Keith. You guys all mean a lot to me, and it was a very fun night tonight, us tearing up the entire theory of gravity when it came to the molecular structure. It was that fun for us. But I love you guys, and thank you for everybody that's listening, and thank you for the support, and everybody that will subscribe and go ahead and listen to again and again, because it's kind of a complicated subject. But yes, I have to give love to Vikka Draziv, Eddie Alencar, Rob Taylor, Keith, Jeannie, specifically Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life.
Amen.
God bless, brother.
Awesome, brother. Great to have you as always. Who's going next?
Well, Kevin, this is Rob. We nailed the biggest points on here. And the way we have it set up, there's so many of us jumping in at any given moment. We still covered quite a bit. We literally, if anybody wanted to review what we said, we covered hours worth of discussion. We could take any part of what we talked about and discuss for hours more. There's hundreds of examples we could show that buoyancy and density is what we observe. Some gravity magical force pulling down doesn't exist. Where's the measurement of it? Show me the measurement of it. It doesn't exist. I'll just ad lib here for a bit. It pulls our car in our parking lot. Our car weighs 5,000 pounds. Well, where's that pull on our human body? Where's the pull? It doesn't exist. Scientifically, if there's a universal force, well, where is it? We can't measure it. If gravity is going to be something universal, it has to be everywhere, and it has to operate on everything universally. It simply doesn't exist, and it fails. Literally, it fails basic science, the term universal. If they say it's everywhere, well, it has to function on everything the same. Well, back to the car in the driveway, 5,000 pounds. Well, where's that 5,000 pound pull over here? It doesn't exist. The simple tests, there are hundreds of examples that show that gravity is zero, or rather, gravity is undefined. It simply does not exist, cannot exist. There are thousands of examples of it. Eric Dubay and anybody else can point out. How does a mosquito fly? How does a gnat fly? How does a dandelion seed float away in the wind? Where's gravity pulling everything down, right? It simply doesn't exist. And the simple observation is it doesn't exist, regardless of anybody's imagination, right? Imagination and defending the schools and the government. That's the only place that gravity exists, in somebody's imagination. It's like Antarctica. Notice the shape of Antarctica is the shape of a brain, because that's the only place it exists, in your head. Okay?
Observation over indoctrination.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We observe buoyancy and density. We observe nothing along the line of gravity. Well said. The globe is garbage. Gravity is garbage. Jesus Christ is the literal Son of God in the flesh. That's all for me. Thank you very much. Nice talking, everybody.
Well,
thanks for joining.
Love you, brother.
thanks, Rob. Always a pleasure. Yeah, adding to what you were saying, Rob, with the car and the person, the gravity stuff. Another example would be a car moving next to a mountain, and the mass attracting mass they should stick together, you know. So the only place gravity can be found is in, as you said, in the imagination or in the textbook. So yep, it looks better there. So thanks for being here, Rob.
So we'll leave
Yeah,
it there, right?
yeah. Keith or Eddie, where wants to go first?
I can go first. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to encourage everyone to become a member and support Vikka Draziv, become a member of his channel, so he can bring more interesting stuff, flatten the curve too. To everyone today, Gene, a big hug. To Kevin, Keith, you, Vikka, and Rob Taylor. I'll be back next week if the Lord Jesus Christ allows.
Thank you,
Ticado amigo, I love
Eddie.
you so much.
Be well,
Thanks for being
Eddie.
here, brother. Keith.
Yeah, I guess I'm last here. I'll just reiterate something I said earlier for anybody who wasn't tuned in earlier, and that is that, you know, the whole 96% of their theory, which is dark matter and dark energy, are two unproven theories, and they have to use those two unproven theories to make the third theory of gravity work. So it's all chalkboard calculations. It's all equations, but equations do not equal experiments, or equations do not trump experiments. So as Kevin kept talking about, go do some of your own experiments with gravity, or whether it's with a laser over water, whatever it is, go do some of your own experiments and try, if you're a glober, try to prove the alleged radius of the Earth somewhere in reality and tell me how that works out. It's not going to work. So welcome to Flat Earth. Vikka, thank you for doing this and putting this together. All you guys, I love you. Good to be here. And I also want to give a shout out to Eddie. I love his work and many, many good videos. If anyone new here has not been on the Flat Earth Banjo USA Japan page on YouTube, please go there. Eddie has done some phenomenal work. And God bless all you guys. I'll see you next week.
Love you,
Have a
brother.
good week, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Oh yeah, exactly, brother. From Newton to Einstein to all these dark matter, dark bullshit, everything they're coming with, tangle and quantum and all this stuff is just fantasy theories and equation and fake maths, you know. So yep, people, there is no shit like gravity happening anywhere. So you have lots to learn from here, to take from here, and do your own investigations and experiments and researches. Yep, brother, there's nothing happening like that. So let's see what we have for the next week. For sure, it's gonna be equally interesting. And yep, hope to see you guys soon for the next episode of Heliopsychosis podcast. Thank you, everybody in the chat, guys. Thank you, Jeannie, Kevin, Rob, Eddie, Keith, and everyone in the chat. Make sure you join us next week for an awesome episode of Heliopsychosis podcast. Bye, guys. This is Vikka Draziv signing off. Bye.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Love you,
everybody.
Astronauts to the moon.
Houston, we have a problem.